All right, are we doing this? Happy Thanksgiving.
We're doing this. We're doing this.
Yes.
I'm thankful for the end for this game ending. That's what I'm thankful for.
I'm thankful for the reality check that a bunch of people needed and got
Hey, are we people?
tonight.
Some of us.
This was exactly what. So Celtics lose 123-104 to the Brooklyn Nets, and everybody who's watching the show most likely knows that by now. This is exactly the loss that I was hoping wouldn't happen. And we talked on Monday night. We said we
Sure.
hope the Celtics can compete in this game. It'll kind of validate a little bit of this winning streak that they've been on, and kind of give fans a reason to say, okay, this wasn't just wins over shitty teams. This is a team that's kind of got it figured out and is a contender and all this stuff. Well, listen, I know that the Nets shot really well and the Celtics shot like shit, but there's truth behind both of those things. And at the end of the day, you got blown out of this game from start to finish. You can talk about this, valiant second half
Nope.
comeback all you
Nope.
want that was fake
Nope.
news,
Nope.
basically.
No.
But the point, the gist of it is the Nets cruised control through this game, and that's the end of it. There was really no game from start to finish.
I'm not
Your
gonna-
thoughts?
I'm not. If I start, I'll never stop.
Bobby,
I'm
Josue?
So I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm-
'Cause if
I'm
I
giving them-
start, I'll never stop.
Let's go to the guys who were there.
Honestly,
giving
I
them
thought
more-
guys who were
the
there.
Nets, they did their homework. I mean, I thought they came out strong on defense. The 3-point shot was falling in the first half, which has sort of been the formula to beat the Celtics. Especially the couple of the first opening weeks of the season Celtics. But I mean, to the Celtics' credit, they fought. They hung in there in that second half. I mean, those couple of those huge punches, those blows towards the fourth quarter. I would to something that John was probably going to say right now. I would say that they kind of laid down. It was a tough blow. I thought that crucial timeout, what was it, a 7-point game at that point? And when they were unable to convert and the Nets responded with a 3-pointer, they were defeated by then. I mean, you could just see it on their body language. So
Again,
7-point game. When the hell did that happen? That couldn't have been close in the first quarter.
I think it was like a 9-point game. Sorry,
Bobby, are
it
you
was relatively
listening
close.
to
It
a
was the
press
last time.
conference?
The last
Yeah.
time this
Yeah,
place
I'm
was
hot on
this place was
for the
converted.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we can hear it.
You got it. We can hear it. I'm mad enough with the game. I can't get mad at Bobby this early.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. It's not
All
you,
right.
Bobby.
Oh
It's
man,
not you.
I'm
And
so
you
far
have
away
to warn
from the
me.
noise.
I got a stuffing in the oven, so 10 minutes, guys. 10:30.
Can we get a reminder from the chat in 10 minutes? John has to
So
run to
everyone in the
John,
chat,
Are you that guy that has to have like at least one of the sides the day before Thanksgiving just to get yourself ready? Like,
No,
you got to cook them in advance, or else you're screwed.
everything is better a day later. The pies need a full day for the juices to really kind of get in there. At
no,
least
I like
a
that.
day.
I like that. I prefer
Sometimes
that. I
two,
thought you were one of those
but
guys that has to eat a little bit. Okay.
Well,
No,
you pick. You can't really pick it a pie,
Oh,
though.
yeah.
Everyone's going to know.
Can't
You
pick it a
really
pie.
pick it a pie.
You know what we did though?
Everybody knows that.
Pretty elite move. We had a little extra pie dough for the crust, and we made little tarts with the leftover filling, and that's what we snacked on.
Well, you're a
That
pie
was
guy.
solid.
I mean, one look at you, I could tell you're a pie guy.
I'm a
That's a
pie
veteran
guy.
move right there. That's a pie guy move. Make a little bit extra. That's how you pick at a pie.
That's a pie guy move. You can't just take a freaking slice out of it.
No.
Then
He's
bring
insecure
it to
about, but
Thanksgiving.
You can't present a pie that's been picked.
It's
You
like
just
showing
can't.
up at a party with like three beers, and like
Right.
half a bottle of whiskey, like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here
Absolutely.
you go, guys.
Now, if it's a dip, you can get away with picking at a dip, but you just
Yeah.
can't. Anyways, let's get back
Anyway.
to this real quick. We'll get to the
We'll
get to
get
sides
into
a
it.
little bit
We'll
Well,
later.
hold on.
We'll
Let me ask John this. Towards the end of that, I felt like towards the end of my response, there was a lot of cringing. I'm assuming you didn't like the Celtics approach in the second half.
It's not the approach. The easiest thing in the world to do is to come back when the other team lets its foot off the gas. And people will feel better and they'll say things like nice run. It doesn't matter. It's fool's gold. It means nothing. It's empty calories. I don't care at all about it. Yes, absolutely. Easiest thing to do is to play 29 points down when the other team doesn't give a crap and has a huge margin for error. That means nothing, okay? When
with
it's a
Durant on the bench. and
with
all this
Durant on the bench, it
garbage.
means nothing. So anybody who was like, "Oh, they got close," I'm sorry, I'm throwing that out the window. At the end of the day, remember last year's first Brooklyn game? What a reality check that was. It was like, oh, this is a good measuring stick, to see where you are. Well, the first real measuring stick to see where you are against a truly elite team in the East, which you haven't fully gotten to play because when you played Milwaukee without their 3 best players and eked out an overtime win, was tonight against the Nets, and they weren't even fully loaded for bear, and they just friggin' embarrassed you. The level of what I believe to be the upper echelon teams in the East, and where the Celtics are and how far from it they are, is very obvious when you see these teams. The most depressing thing about it, I texted you guys, is, this is what's.
I got some quotes from you in a second, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, but the real bummer is watching this game. If you're the Celtics, you're loaded up and you're thinking this is going to be great. Let's see where we are. It looked to me like Brooklyn came in and treated the Celtics like the Celtics would have treated the Bulls 3 years ago, the Rockets. Like, it doesn't matter if we can play 10 minutes and beat these guys, we don't have to give a full effort. They looked bored. They looked bored by the Celtics?
No, I didn't look at
it
that
way. This team can never beat us.
They were like,
they did their homework. The Celtics just missed everything. Celtics missed everything off the bat, cold from 3. They couldn't break it. They bricked every 3 they took.
I feel like they had a lot of hands in the Celtics' faces. Like, I feel like that pressure was just in that first half. It took the Celtics a while to wake up, and I was surprised that this thing didn't get to a 30-point hole in the first half, like the way they were looking. But they hung around. To John's point, it was when Durant was on the bench a lot of the times. But I just feel like whether it was those pick and pops with Al in the post, or whether it was like in transition, like I just felt like they knew where the ball was going to go in the first half. In the second half, they let up. They let up in a big way.
So coaching. So you're saying
Josue, real quick, you had something from Ime. What's up?
Oh yeah. So Ime says this is the first time in a long time the Celtics were out hustled. He also added that the Celtics can't let their offense affect their defense. He thought that the Celtics that affected the Celtics in the wrong way, which is kind of what I meant in the beginning there. Like,
early
I felt like
season problems, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're seeing that a lot early.
Not the same sort of like lingering frustration where you sort of knew they were going to make the wrong, the same mistakes over and over. I just felt like it was they just when things were down, you saw it affect their offense, and it was just like, well, no, keep going with the defense, and I don't know.
And it starts and ends with
that
who?
Huge run coming out of halftime. And this has happened before, when opposing teams, they come out of halftime, they have a big run, and the Celtics just they try to play uphill, and it's just too much for them. They just can't overcome.
And it starts and ends with who?
Well, Tatum, obviously.
It starts with Tatum,
yeah.
And this is a bummer after the 4 straight 30s where you're like, okay, great. Just to go, the classic offense affects the defense sort of.
Well, John,
thing
who's he talking about? I mean, who's Ime talking about? It's very obvious. You don't go on the podium and talk about Romeo Langford
our offense affect our defense.
Yeah,
it's this, right?
It's this right here, and it was very interesting. We were all talking about it. Wow, where was Jason Tatum in the fourth quarter? When it was a double-digit game, but if you're gonna make a comeback, theoretically you would put your best player in the court unless you were unhappy with him. And it's not the 1 for 9 that he's unhappy about. It's what he just said on the podium, which is we can't let our offense affect our defense. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, 1 for 9. Jason Tatum just shot 1 for 9. I think wasn't it Monday? He shot 1 for 9 or Friday? One of those games.
From 3.
From 3. It was
overlooked because he scored, yeah.
Exactly. He scored in other ways, and they played defense, and they won the game. Well, tonight was a little different story. Tatum probably wanted to come out, have a great shooting night against Durant and Harden and the guys that give him all the respect, and he didn't. And did that affect him on the defensive end? Well, it sounds like, according to his head coach, it did. Because, again, Ime is not talking about the bench guys. He's talking about the starters and the stars of this team. Jaylen Brown obviously still is not where he needs to be. 23 minutes tonight. Again, barely played in the fourth quarter. Was taken out multiple times in the second half. So who knows where he is physically and how that's affecting him on both ends of the court. If you want to give any player credit, I'll give Marcus Smart credit tonight for his effort. If you want to, effort in the second half, he was a part of that run there, and he was playing, solid defense. He was taking charges, and I forgot about the back and forth between him and Harden, which is kind of a fun one. If you guys remember a couple years ago, that
was
comeback.
The best.
That was unbelievable, yeah. Against the Rockets when he got caught hard in an offensive foul and the turnover, and just an improbable Celtics comeback. So I kind of forgot about that, and it reminded me of it tonight. So that was good to see Marcus Smart. And Smart was in there until like the 4-minute mark, and I think Ime just threw in the white flag at that point. So I don't think Ime's talking about Smart, but I think he is talking about Tatum and go down the line, I guess.
Yeah, again, I don't know what's going on with Jalen, whether it was like, mental, or he's just sitting there kind of thinking like, I don't know what I've got on this thing. And he's taking it really slow on the hamstring, kind of like Harden was at points in the, last year, particularly late in the year. But he looked like he was very cognizant of it. But Tatum just laid a friggin' egg and was just like a sulky, pouty mess.
Minus 33. I mean,
Minus
yikes.
33. Really, really bad.
It's hard to do.
He was sulking.
And all of this, he was. And all
They
of
let
this
did they let
yeah,
the refs get to him too? Because the refs were what's
refs
that?
were rough.
I mean, I just
for Tatum,
Refs were
yeah,
rough,
he
but-
was. I mean, when that foul that was going to be his third, he was so adamant with the coaching staff, like, no, we need to challenge it, and they did, and obviously they won it. But I think he thought that would be a crucial turnaround because he wouldn't have to go to the bench with 3 fouls, but didn't help much.
Yeah,
No.
that's a rough one. And it's so funny. The chat's saying, I get some people in the chat saying we let Jaylen Brown off the hook too much, and other people who say we don't give him enough credit and he's our best
we never
player.
talk about him.
Yeah, that's usually what people say.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm not letting Jaylen Brown off the hook. I know he was a game-time decision tonight, and he didn't look like, prime-time Jaylen Brown, so I'm thinking that he's still not all the way back. So I'm not really letting him off the hook, as I'm just assuming that he's not his normal self. Now, does that mean that he shouldn't be able to, play defense or be a better distributor? No. So I'm not letting him completely off the hook. I'm just acknowledging the fact that, according to the team and injury reports, he's not quite there yet. So
Here's
I don't know.
comment.
Is he going to play every other game or play 50% every game? Then it's obviously going to suck.
Here's a comment. Something we actually
Oh my God.
We were texting each other about it because
we need Bobby for this.
No, but I mean, we texted Bobby, and I was
Bobby
like,
wrote a whole article on this.
I don't think Tatum and Brown passed to each other once. And Bobby Manning, once he changes his name, I'll let him back into the chat. Bobby Manning went and did his research and looked at it. And he can talk about this very thing. But yes, Tatum and Brown really. Oh, here he does it again.
Gonna centering in.
Bobby Manning wrote about this. No, they don't pass to each other a lot.
Bobby, is this your burner?
Pretty low.
Purpose over pleasure. Is this your burner account? Bobby, take it away.
Well, anyway, 5 passes total between these two over the course of games on a per-game basis. It's pretty stunning. I mean, you asked about the wings. I went and looked at a bunch of guys after you said that, Jimmy. I only put a few in the article. But even Kawhi and Paul George last year, about like 15, 16 passes over the course of a game between those two. And again, tonight, I didn't have the numbers in front of me. I wasn't keeping track, John, but you really didn't see them going to each other all that much directly.
No.
There's passing sequences between them. Like last game, I saw Brown drive baseline.
I know, but I did see them one time, like I saw them once sit on the bench smiling at each other. So everything's fine, Bobby. It's fine.
So that's where
Bobby, do you remember some of the numbers from your article? And it was a good article. I mean, if somebody's interested in
CLNSmedia.com, go check it out. Bobby Manning went deep on this topic because we wondered it aloud. Yeah.
I think it's 5-6 passes per game between the two, like 2 each way.
And what's that relative to
Crap,
other
it's 10:30, guys.
Players? Oh yeah,
there
John, we'll
goes
see you in
the
a
time.
minute. John
Keep talking about the article here.
Bobby,
Did he say remind him at 10:30?
He did, yeah. Bobby, to give some people a little bit of like idea of how that compares to other players, do you remember some of the other teammate passes that you recall numbers wise?
Yeah, I know CJ. Dame passed to CJ about 15 times a game. Giannis and Drew Holiday's totals are pretty high, close to 20 passes between them each game. I think the average like star duo in the league passes directly between each other. I'd say somewhere between 10 to 15 times a game. And I didn't rank every single star on this list. I kind of just handpicked, some in the East, some in the West. LeBron going 15 times pretty much between him and Russ, him and Davis. I'd be hard pressed to find 2 stars passing each other fewer than 3 times a game each. Like that is just such a low total. It really stands out. And you would kind of have 2 different discussions here. Like, do Jalen and Jason like each other as people in the room, as personalities? And then there's the question of playing on the court. And when you have Ime saying pregame before the Houston game, they need to learn how to play with each other. He said that about 3 times each.
Yeah, which is
like that speaks to me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think what the reason it's relevant is because the narrative has always been, can they make their teammates better? Well, wait a minute, can they make each other better? You know, is that something that's actually like, is that even on in their agenda? You know, when you look at a stat like that, or the way you just broke that down, Bobby, like it's staggering when you really think about it. I mean, we're talking about 2 elite guys who are clear cut, the top 2 guys of this team, 2 guys who, in my opinion, are both still getting better. They haven't reached their peak yet. And you see the pieces around them get better, but it was really frustrating to see this team without Jalen for that long stretch. So, again, like, it's something we've talked about, but at the same time, we still have to wait to see it through. Like, have we really? I mean, you can look at 1 game or 2 games, or that's such a small sample size where those 2 guys have played together this season. But there's so many contributing factors to those statistics, right? Whether it's Jalen playing hurt, whether it's Jalen coming back from COVID, even when he's available, was he 100%? Same thing you could say, about Jalen. I mean, about Jason. So I still say we have to wait and see this thing through. But I can understand where everyone's coming from. I can understand why those quotes were in Bontemps' piece, these numbers from Bobby's piece. It makes sense, but at the same time, there's a lot of things going on with this team. Not to
What
make
are
any
those things?
but they're under a microscope. They're under a microscope. For sure.
Who's not under a microscope for real?
Everyone else except for Jalen. No one else under a microscope like those 2. Oh, maybe
I got those
Ime,
numbers.
I'm saying nationally.
Let's get Bobby's numbers real quick. He's got some numbers.
Well, Harden KD, for example. Harden passes to KD 18 times a game.
But he's a point guard.
AD to Harden.
The point guards ones are going to be a little higher. We know that.
It's exceptionally low. It's exceptionally low.
Though. Yeah,
I mean, the comparison's Kawhi George, because the Clippers pretty much play the same exact style the Celtics do. They got their guards, but it's running through their wings.
Well, for
Kawhi
this team,
passed to George 6 times a game, George to Kawhi 8 times a game.
Okay,
I think that's what we're all trying to say here. For this team, it's pretty low because, like we've been saying all offseason,
everything is low.
They're clear cut number 1 and 2, and then there's a little bit of a gap. And then whether you want to put Schroeder, Horford, or whoever Smart, there's that gap between those 2.
Well, there's some weird numbers being thrown around that I don't understand why. Like assists, potential assists, blah blah blah.
Potential wins.
None of this makes sense, guys. This is
like
a team.
Excuses.
It is excuses.
This is a team that was heading into tonight 12th in the NBA overall in field goal percentage. That's not that low, okay? Yet they were 2nd overall in ISO percentage, and something like 22nd or 23rd in ISO field goal percentage, which means they run a lot of ISO. They're really friggin' bad at it. And in fact, when they do pass, they actually score at a fairly high clip. So this idea that they're leaving stuff on the table with these potential assists is silly. They're a team that does not help each other create baskets. They're near the bottom third of the league. They're not though. That's the thing. They're fine. They're 30th and 40th overall in the league in assists right now. Smart and Schroeder. That means everybody's got a guy who does it that much. Like, that's not great. Yeah, if your starting point guard is 30th in the league in assists and 20th among guards, that's low. Bottom third is all I'm saying.
We're looking at a process, though. It's better than last year. You can't do worse than the assist rate was last year.
No, but they are doing worse. They're slightly worse this year.
I think the ball movement's been fine, and that's where the potential.
No, and they're slightly worse, and their assist numbers and their potential assist numbers are exactly in line with one another. So they are exactly what you would expect for the amount that this team passes the ball. They're not doing anything more. They're not. We're so used to it being this way that even a slight uptick in improvement over a small period of time, and we are like, oh, look, they moved the ball today. They do not do that very well. They do not help each other create create baskets. And again, this is what this piece, among a million others that have been written, keeps saying is these aren't hit pieces. Like, I don't think Bontemps went out there looking for it. I think he's asking people, what do you think about the Celtics? And the general vibe you get outside of the little Celtic green echo chamber that you hear here is you got two guys who are supremely talented but don't really make their teammates better. You've heard it how many freaking times now? I mean,
Yeah, but you have some other nonsense in there, like Tatum only cares about his numbers, and he wants to score 39 in a win, and he's not willing to score.
It's
70.
nonsense. Why? Because we live in Boston.
Because we watch him every game. He willingly gives up the ball off doubles.
But I think what John is asking is, do you think it's nonsense that an NBA GM would say that? Like, I don't think that's.
You think it's nonsense? I think if Jason Tatum played
somewhere else,
nonsense?
I think I pretty much have said this already. That when Tatum's having a bad game, he's very upset when he's having a bad game. When he's having a great game, he's very happy by having a great game. You see it on the social media posts, drop 50 on him, whatever. Even if it's a win, it's more about the personal performance. And I'm not saying he's all about himself, but I'm not stunned to hear a GM say something along those lines. I mean, I think if you watch, you know that he gets very high and very low about his performances.
Yeah, I feel like if the Celtics were the Sixers,
that crazy?
No, you're right. I mean, look, if you sent the entire Celtics roster over to Philadelphia, we would be killing them.
Right.
Like, look at these losers, and they got these two guys, and all they want to do is score, and the rest of their team is
they don't
terrible.
Pass to each other.
They don't like each other. They don't pass to each other. Like, people would be having a field day with it. This is what people on the outside, I think, generally think.
We did it with the Sixers.
Watch every game. They just kind of catch bits and pieces. They have perceptions of what's going on. These questions were asked when the Celtics were stumbling, and it's like, oh,
no, they weren't. They've been asked at every period of time over the last couple of years, and the general consensus is these guys are not, their number one focus is not making one another better. It's they're both supremely talented at scoring the basketball. They are unique individual talents, but they aren't able to make each other or their teammates better. And until they do that, they're not going to get better. And so that's just generally what people think. But the other side of the article is the rest of the roster is garbage. And that's also fair. And that makes their job that much harder because at the end of the day, that's one of the things the article talks about is you got really lucky with Horford and Schroeder because you got professional basketball players on this team to go along with Smart and then Rob's ascendancy. But the rest of the roster is a bunch of people that you're forced to play because you drafted them and they stink,
and you're really grasping at anything that they do well,
anything
to hang on to something. Romeo looked aware tonight. It's just things like that where it's actually guys in their second and third years that are really good, you don't need to point out the little things that they're doing well on a random night.
Well, that's where we're at.
They just play good basketball. It's that simple.
Switch, he could hang around with Durant, so that was good. That's encouraging.
No, I'm not knocking. It was just a name I threw out there. But there are actual things that he does well, especially in the defensive end. But the point I'm trying to make is that we're always reaching for give this guy a gold star sticker tonight because he wasn't a complete liability out there.
Right. He literally didn't fall and hurt himself, right. Wow. Right.
Right. Now, Bobby, it seems like you're more upset with the timing of the article than what's actually in the article.
I'm upset about the timing. I mean, it's basically a hit piece on their struggles that mentions they're actually third in net rating over the last 3 weeks. They're stuck in neutral, but they're rolling.
Piece, Bobby.
I mean, come on. You play the best team in the NBA tonight and you lose, and we're going to reinforce it with that.
Well, Bobby,
we're not, Bobby.
Not the proverbial, not cool kid table, but that table that you just, let's say a handful of GMs, and half of them feel that way. That wouldn't surprise me. They've been in the league. Tatum and Brown have been in the league long enough
so
for someone to come up with that kind of opinion.
Wait a second. We can paint a rosy picture of this team after wins against Oklahoma and Dallas. I mean, Oklahoma and Houston. But we can't say when they get absolutely eviscerated by actually a good team.
Maybe the best team.
That this game matters. So this one didn't matter, but the two blowouts against crappy opponents are what define this team.
Well, it's not just the blowouts. You had 3 weeks of number 1 defense. You had 3 weeks without Brown of number 11 offense. You made serious progress on both sides of the ball under a new head coach. You're going in a better direction here.
You're going in a better direction because you were in such a bad direction before.
I know, and Jimmy, to your point, we're grasping at things. That was the point Jackson Frank, I thought, made great on Twitter in reaction to this. The story here is that they've lost a ton of talent.
Yes.
They haven't replenished it, and
Yes.
all of a sudden everything's on the Jays.
It's both.
So they're making progress. You're
It's
seeing
all-
young guys in this game hang in there against Durant and KD down the stretch and push it at 13, and we're just laughing at it.
It's always been both, Bobby.
Yes,
That's the
we
thing.
are,
It's
actually.
always been both. It's always been that their job is harder because the roster around them is bad. So, in order for them to get better, they're going to have to play different or play better than they are now, or
And they're
else
in the
they're a
process of
500
doing that.
team. No, they're not. They're not. This is a 500 team now for a year and 20 games. Okay,
I mean,
they're not.
Brown's been back for half a game with his minutes
Every
on
team
it.
has injuries. Okay.
So I mean, I don't know how we're assessing his play in this. So, and then Tatum, you just watch how he plays. He gets off the ball. He gets off against the doubles. Did a great job against the Lakers. He's struggling to shoot for sure. And I do think we've said, like, at some point you're just playing bad instead of all these excuses that he's going through here. But this perception that he just cares about the stats, he's not looking to move out the ball. It's not true if you watch the game. It's just not. He's not a great ball mover. I don't think he necessarily raises the level of teammates, but he's working on it. He's getting better.
Okay, well, that was
I guess, Bobby.
I mean, we're in year 2 of him being the point forward on this team.
We are in year 5 of him going in the wrong direction with a lot of trends that you want to see going the other way. He attempts fewer shots at the rim. He ISOs more this year than he has in years past, and his shooting percentage is altogether down. He's not doing anything.
his 3-point shot has been
He's
pretty
not
bad.
doing anything better yet. And so, yes, I know he's 23, and the idea behind that is that means there's a ton of room for growth, but he hasn't shown it in the last year and a half or 2 years. He hasn't. He's stuck in neutral, so to say. He is not getting better. In fact, he's kind of leaning into the stuff that you want to see him get away from at times. And this year, more so than any. That's it.
Well,
So he's not getting better. It
John,
doesn't mean he won't, but he hasn't in the last little bit.
Is there part of his game, or at least his attitude, that makes you wonder if maybe it's like he said a week ago, right? I know I need to get better. I know I'm not perfect. There's things that I'm working on, but sometimes I feel like I wonder if Tatum's wondering how much can the team adapt to him, instead of the other way around.
Like Mike said, I've always believed the thing with Tatum is Jimmy and I are differ on this. I believe that that Tatum wants really bad to do well, but the number one thing he knows how to do is to score. And so every time he's struggling, he just tries even harder to do it, and sometimes exacerbates the problem because he's not a guy who's doing things in a lot of other ways to help you win games. It doesn't mean he doesn't grab some rebounds from time to time and play defense as well. Sure, he does other things, but just making people around you better or affecting the game like in a Marcus Smart sort of way or in a different way, or I'm going to start distributing or blah, blah, blah. No, he just leans in and he wants to score more, and he gets really frustrated when he can't, and he kind of leans back into some of his worst habits when things aren't going well. And as Ime said before the game, the offense affects the defense. So when he starts to go south, it really goes bad.
I think I would agree with the majority of that.
Stuffing. I got to go check the stuffing.
Yeah.
Again with the
It
stuffing?
was done 10:30.
Yeah, it's obviously undercooked, and he's freaking out about it. You don't want to overcook the stuffing. You don't want dry stuffing. Stuffing is very hit or miss, I would say. Probably the most hit or miss side of them all. Mashed potatoes, you can't really screw that up. Pies are pies, but stuffing, we won't get into it too much right now.
You have to really be bad to mess up some stuffing,
I don't know, man. Stuffing, it can be dry. You can put the wrong, some stuffing is just like, what is all this crap in here? Anyways, that was stuffing talk. What are you making? What kind of stuffing are we talking about here?
This one has a little bit of sage sausage in it. And,
sausage is legit for a good stuffing.
And some oyster mushrooms, and then regular stuffing.
Oyster mushrooms. What in the
I'm
world?
excited about pumpkin pie. I've been in the last few years.
Made a pumpkin pie, made an apple pie, made a mac and cheese.
You're a mac and cheese guy, huh?
I'm adding it because it's not something that they normally make. But I think you need minimum three types of stuffing at the table. Like a traditional one.
Three different stuffings?
Maybe a meat one and a cornbread one. Yes, definitely.
It's a lot of stuffing.
Man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuffing.
Tomorrow.
3 stuffings.
3 different stuffings. Okay. I mean, you can go with the simple bread stuffing as your safe bet.
It's fine.
I think a sausage is fine, but I mean, Three is a lot. I mean, you must have a lot of people coming over, though. I mean, that's fine.
No, I just think it's important. It's important.
You doing
Yeah.
mashed potatoes? I would think. Are you doing
Of course.
I don't know. I mean, how many sides are you gonna have at this table?
I may still make another one tonight.
You doing like a casserole of any
I'm
sort?
making a corn casserole.
Okay, I like corn.
Yeah.
Corn's a good one. Corn's a staple.
It's a good
corn.
one.
Cream of corn, or creamed corn.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyways,
it's like I said, I don't want to make this seem like an overreaction to one game. It's not. It's not. This game sucked, and it was a bit of a reality check.
Hey, I said they were gonna get blown out.
You did. Bobby called it on Monday. He said they're gonna get blown out. So why are you? Then you should. I mean, you should be like not. You should have seen that article today and be like, yeah, it checks out. Right. I thought they were going to be able to. I thought they could compete. Maybe. I mean, is that so much to ask?
No,
if they can't compete, if they can't compete,
no shooting, and the Nets have the most shooting in the league.
If they can't even compete, then what are we like? What are we doing? Really?
We know they're not championship contenders this year. I mean, our expectations 5 seed, and that's why like I don't. Did anyone in the world have even East Finals expectations?
No, but you can still
know where they're at.
Still compete in a regular season game and not be an NBA Finals.
I think they did compete
contender.
in that second half.
Exactly. I was just going to say, Jimmy. I think 2 weeks ago this wouldn't have been a game in the fourth quarter. It would have been the whole bench just cleared out.
It wasn't a game. It was never a game. And when was it a game? It was a double digit.
I mean, you two are always looking for the strides from Romeo, Grant, Neesmith, these guys.
It's the easiest thing to do. Play when the other team quits, it's the easiest thing to do. There's no pressure. Do well or don't, and it doesn't matter.
Bobby, I look for silver. I look for that type of stuff in like a win. I don't look for it in a blowout loss where it's garbage time. That doesn't mean anything to me. And by the way, Grant missed a lot of shots tonight, as far as I can recall. I mean, none of those guys stood out to me tonight. Romeo had some solid defense.
Grant and Romeo were both on the floor when you turn this from 29.
Yeah, they were. They were. And who else was on the floor for the Nets?
Not Durant. They took their foot off the gas, and the Celtics.
Runs happen in the NBA. Runs happen all the time in the NBA. The Nets went out to it was 18-3 to start the second quarter or whatever it was. Like micro runs happen. That's just the NBA, and you can take them with a grain of salt. I'll give them credit for it. I thought Marcus Smart was a big part of it, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and say the Celtics
Grant and Romeo both played well on defense. I mean, the defensive effort was incredible. The stretches where this team's flat out awesome on defense.
Stretches mean nothing. You have to play 48 minutes of basketball.
How's 3 weeks? How's 3 weeks the number one defense? We're never going to talk about the defense. We're just going to keep complaining about the Jays.
We are going to talk about a 500 team. We're going to
talk about the defense. Team. That's why they were successful over the last couple of weeks. But also remember who some of the teams that they're beating too. I mean, the last 4 games that they played are against teams that you're not going to see in the playoffs.
There were other games too over 3 weeks. It wasn't just those 2 games that built up that resume for them. You have a pretty good stretch here where the Celtics have established themselves as one of the best, most disruptive teams on defense in the NBA. That had to be their identity this year. You saw it again in a half in this game with your regulars out there doing it alongside Romeo and Grant. That's why I take away some positives from that second half. This started midway through the third. This wasn't 5 minutes to go. You went on a little 10-0 run, and that was the game. You played a good second half of basketball here. Drew it really close.
Bobby, look, Bobby, it's all fine and good, but at the end of the day, in this stretch, the reality is this. Yes, great. You beat some teams you're supposed to, but the good wins, Miami, and then you can give them the Lakers. Every other one is a team you're supposed to absolutely curb stomp.
And what's wrong with that?
But that's the point. You're playing Toronto, Milwaukee without their 3 best players, and you go to overtime. You split with Cleveland. Okay, you lose to Atlanta in a game that didn't really feel that particularly
lose to the Hawks by double digits.
Yeah, exactly. And then you beat Oklahoma. You
lose
beat
to the
Houston.
Mavericks.
Again, we're talking a stretch.
Brown was out for both those.
How are you not going to look at? And again, they were out without Jalen, so you're going to give them. You're going to give them props.
No, Rob.
You're going to give him props for it. You missed Jalen, you missed Richardson, you missed Rob for portions of those. But you have to look at the opponents here. There are games there that are almost unlosable in that stretch. So you have to look at who you're playing as well. what matters is how you stack up against better teams. 2 teams in the East that they've played recently that they expect are ahead of them, they lost, in both fairly convincing fashion. Atlanta
And that's
clearly
my
looks
issue.
like a better team, and
The
Philly looks
fashion.
like a better team. And you went to overtime with Milwaukee without their 3 best players. The reality is they're miles from good teams. They're miles from them right now.
I
That's
expected
the
a
reality.
loss. I expected a loss tonight, but again, I just wanted to see that they could hang in there and compete and give them a run for their money. A fake second half run when you're down 20 or 30 points, that doesn't mean anything to me. You've already
And Nets were
lost the game.
deep in their bench without 2 or 3 regulars in their lineup tonight,
so that's
too.
why I'm disappointed. I mean, do I expect the Celtics to beat the Nets? No. Do I wish that they could compete and make it interesting, especially at home? Yeah, I do. So I'm not going to give them a bunch of credit and say, oh, they hung in there, they competed, blah, 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 this crap. Because that's fake. That's just not real. That's not how the game went. If you watched the game, and I know you guys did, at no point in the game did you really think that they were in the game.
I turned to Josue. I thought they were going to win. I really did in that second half.
They never even cut the single digits.
Bobby, I never want you to change, buddy. I really don't.
They ran out of Brown minutes.
I don't.
They pulled Tatum with 6 minutes.
I don't know what I would do.
Maybe that's why I thought it was close, because I was watching it.
If I ever
that's
poison
why
Bobby,
Josue.
if Bobby ever turns into a cynic, this whole thing is over. So
turns
I don't even think we're being cynics. I just think we're being realists right now. I mean, listen, when the Celtics play well, we'll go check the tapes. We give them credit when they play well, and we criticize them when they don't. It's simple as that.
Listen,
People want to say we're haters, then you're not watching every episode.
This crowd's been a pretty good barometer for this team over the last year and a half. They booed them. They booed them in the first half. A couple people left. But you had a pretty engaged, energized crowd really backing up what this team was
It's
giving
the night
them.
before Thanksgiving. What do you expect? They're all having a good time.
This isn't last
Paid a lot
year's
of money
Celtics.
for that game. They're going to cheer if they can. Watch
I'm
it.
just saying this isn't last year's Celtics. It may
The
only be a
reality-
little bit above that, but it's above that.
The reality is, a lot of what came up in the article, timing aside, because again, I don't think the timing really matters, and I'll explain why after we tell you about. And people,
Yeah, we could use this right now.
People have been calling for this for a while because they need to get a little calm here. So again, whew.
Perfect.
Everyone just, even if you're watching at home, inhale, big inhale. Whew. Hold it and exhale. And then go to calm.com/garden.
Think about the stuffing.
Yeah, think about
the
multiple
pie.
different stuffings and
3
multiple
stuffings
pies.
tomorrow.
Go to garden, calm.com/garden.
Calm.com/garden. Number 1
Receive
sleep
40% off. Yep.
and meditation app. So you want
And
to
you
go
know
get
what?
some? Yeah.
You're
Jimmy.
probably home for the holidays right now. Whether maybe you're at your in-laws or your girlfriend, you're meeting the girlfriend's parents for the first time and you're freaking out. Go to calm.com/garden. Receive 40% off the subscription. Go to the meditation tab on the app. There's a tab there called
tell us about it. It's part of
7 Days of Calm, I think it's called, and you can just start. It's a little program you can get on, and you just give yourself 20 minutes. Tomorrow morning, give yourself 20 minutes. Don't freak out. It's gonna be mayhem in the kitchen. It's a bad football game. That's a very good point. It's a bad noon football game tomorrow. We're gonna watch the whole thing anyways, but
I put that one up. No, I agree. The calm.com. Sorry, you gotta be able to see it. You gotta be able to see the
jeez, I'm just
what is it? Calm.com/garden, number 1 sleep and meditation app out there, 40% off, limited time only. So go get some right now. And again, I do want to go back to it because every bit of frustration we have, I can't take this. It's not making me
working,
calm.
Jimmy.
It's not making me calm. It's upsetting me.
Well, that's typically not the reaction you would get.
No, right now I'm a little triggered.
That's just not his noise.
That's a difference. So there's a tab. There's a sound for everybody. That just wasn't John's sound. He's not a. I think that was a beachy vibe.
No, I just think every single thing comes back to a lot of kind of said what came up in the article, and it's not like okay, yeah, there's some quotes in there and they could be cherry picked and there could be a hit piece and it could be agenda driven. I don't think so. Bon Thompson isn't out there friggin' looking to slay people right now. I think he went around asking, "What do you guys think of the Celtics?" And a lot of people are like, "We think they kind of stink." But this is the frustration with the team, is like the general hopelessness you feel knowing you've only got Tatum and Brown. They do bear the brunt of the criticism because they're really the only guys you can look to, because the rest of the team just isn't good enough to really get upset with. And that's kind of just where you're stuck, is what's next. There's no other superstar. There's no kids to develop. There's no assets. There's no you've missed on a bunch of draft picks. And this is what's frustrating, is you're looking around, is like, how is it going to get better? And again, we lived in a world as a Celtics fan, where something was always possible. There were so many possibilities, whether it was guys you could get, things you could trade, picks you could make, and none of that exists now. The cupboard is bare.
It's tough.
That's that's where we got stuck last year, where we're like, oh man, they're in a tough spot right now. It's going to be very difficult for them to improve unless something happens. That's why we overreact to every Romeo, decent game,
right,
or Grant hitting corner threes. Because the only way this gets better, if all of a sudden these guys, are transformed into something that we didn't expect, because there aren't a lot of other answers out there.
Well, the other factor too is these. You need less breaks before, in terms of maybe injuries, some teams falling off that you didn't expect, upsets, things of that regard that could push you further in the playoffs. Now, I was texting you guys earlier because I've been looking at the standings trying to figure out just where the Celtics are going to fall, and kind of everybody ends up right when this is done. And you're going to need to catch breaks from probably 2, maybe 3 teams, maybe 4 if the Hornets and Knicks stay in this, to escape the play-in tournament. Otherwise, you have 4 locks for the top 4. You have 2 teams that are probably better than you for 5 and 6, between like Miami, Atlanta.
That's the problem.
Type of teams. Yeah. So, some of it just comes down to what other teams have done to improve over you. Washington and Chicago in particular. So that's part of where this ends up. I think all the context was in the article, John. The pile-on the Celtics just frustrates me, because this isn't just a case of a careless team that's completely out of it, not focused, and not trying. I think they've sort of reversed that perception of the last.
But that's not what the article's saying. The article's saying is their talent depleted. The article's saying you have 2 stars.
Yeah, all the context is in there. Yeah.
The article's just saying stuff we know. It's hard to actually argue against. The 2 best players kind of do the same thing. They don't make each other better because they are mainly score first sort of guys. And they're terrific. Everyone likes them as talents, but the rest of the roster isn't good enough to compete. They just don't have enough high-end talent, and they have a lot of filler in that back end of that roster with people who are totally replaceable or totally forgettable. And they've drafted them, they have to play them, and they shoehorn them in. And you get what you get. But the outside perception of the Celtics, when you're looking in here, you're not looking at them and being like, ooh, Romeo or whatever, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, those guys aren't going to play when they're healthy. And when they're healthy, you have a Horford who has bucked expectations, Schroeder who has played pretty well here. A couple of things that I think put you,
they could be competitive.
Yeah.
They could be competitive.
Yeah.
It's really more a matter of the future, because Schroeder's a Band-Aid. It's going to be hard to re-sign. Richardson is what Richardson is. And then Al is, getting old, and really is a guy you brought in just to be able to shed a contract, who's been giving you a ton. But those aren't building blocks for the future, and they're not tradable assets. So you're just looking down the road thinking, where's it coming from? Where what's that next thing going to be? And that's where I think people are looking at. That's what neutral means. Neutral means is they're good enough to maybe, if they overachieve, sneak into a 4 or 5 seed. If they play to what we think their potential is, maybe 6, 7, 8, who knows? But somewhere in that middle pack. And then what? There isn't that ascendancy. You're not waiting for these 2 younger guys. It's not Tatum and Brown 3 years ago where you're like, wait till these guys get going. You just don't have that. You don't have high draft picks. You don't have money. And that's kind of what the article's talking about. That's neutral.
We knew all of that. I mean, there's things we didn't know that we've learned, positive things coming into this year that I think improved this team's fortunes a little bit. I mean, defense can be the great differentiator in the standings. And what I've seen on this end, even with Cantor out there, John, blocking that corner 3, Grant rotating on Harden, there's a lot of progress with this team defensively.
And the putback.
I thought they hung in there.
That was a good.
And they had been playing hard.
I thought they hung in there.
Yeah,
For
but isn't
large
that
stretches
encouraging
of
to
the
you,
game
John? I mean, the 3-game winning streak. I mean, sure they dropped one that the last game of that road trip, but the defense it did a 180. And this early,
No,
I just feel like
we're talking about
we didn't get one stretch like that last season. We got a
we're
game
talking
like that, a game or two every other 3 games, but we never saw them put together a stretch like that on the defensive end.
we're talking about two different things here, Josue. Like me and you, we're looking at the momentary things, game to game, this season that can make them competitive, maybe make them surprise people by a seed or two here. Jimmy and John are hammering on the big picture that there's no path to contention. There's no real title aspirations for this team this year or in coming years based off how everything's fallen into place here. Both those things are true. The only problem I have with the piece is just laying it all on the Jays and just saying these guys aren't good enough to fix this. They're not making progress. They're not making other people better. Let me ask you two this. If you put Mills, Bembry, Aldrich, that net supporting cast, let's say Joe Harris too, even though he didn't play tonight, on Tatum and Brown side, and you put Grant, Romeo, Richardson, those type of guys on the net side next to Harden and Durant, are Harden and Durant looking like great creators?
I think Harden's a great creator. I mean, I think Harden's obviously a way better creator
Harden's
than
Oh, they're
elite.
better.
thought he
They're
was.
better, but are they looking like great creators? Are they making people
I
around
mean,
them
you're
better?
you're,
That's
you're
the
basically
tell.
saying their supporting cast is better than the Celtics supporting cast, which is true. That is true, but they're also better than the Celtics stars too. So they're just a better team from top to bottom. I can't hear
Exactly.
Josue.
Yeah, the 2 stars are exponentially better. Well, maybe not exponentially, but they're significantly better than Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, I know
Mhm.
that. I'm just saying. I think part of the perception here that we've seen over the last 2 years with the Jays.
Yeah,
is
you don't
that
have a
they
Joe
don't have-
Harris. You don't have a
Yeah.
Joe Harris, obviously. You don't have a Patty. Well, you do have a Patty Mills in a way.
And
And
Javante
Schroeder.
Green, you had semi last year. Like these are the wing guys that they're dishing out to that they're trying to make better. They don't move. They don't cut for the most part. Like these are guys that are just kind of stationary. And look, I think the great passers in this league create lanes for guys. They certainly produce in the pick and roll with Tatum and Brown need to do. They could be getting more out of Rob, as we've talked about all season. I think that's a guy who has kind of suffered due to their poor passing.
That
But
sucks.
yeah, but
So
With Jalen,
I don't think these are just horrible passers who can't get guys open and can't create for others. Tatum in particular. Brown, like I think his creation ability gets overblown because he's never really doing it. Like that's not a responsibility thrust upon him. He doesn't have the ball much. I didn't like the film. If you go in that CLNS article and look at him in that game, hanging out in the corner, stuff Josue talks about all the time, not involving himself. That's probably a reason he doesn't get the ball from Tatum a ton. Like it's not time to rest when Tatum's got the ball. Go create, find the ball,
the
and do
the
those
giving
things.
people the ball is twofold. It's a choice you make, but it's also somebody has to earn the ball, which
Yeah.
means move without the ball. Get yourself open sometimes. There's not a lot of movement off the ball. There's a bunch of guys standing around saying, "Can I have the ball?" And then it's like, "Sure, okay, I guess you can have it now. You're standing a few feet away from me. Why not?" Like it's and yes, they're better when they swing it and really get movement, but once somebody gets it and they start doing their little dribble thing, it's should I go or should I give it to you? And do you want to do the same exact thing I'm about to do? And that's just kind
And
of how
so
they end up playing.
that's the most fair criticism of Tatum, right? And this is, on Ime too, because Ime has a stomach for isolation. He says if these guys find mismatches, they should attack it. They should take advantage of that. So there's been a leniency on Tatum's isolation here. And when you look at the numbers again, he's diving into that isolation hole quite a bit, and it's not working well.
And it's not working.
So
it's not working for Schroeder, and it's not working for Brown. It's not working for any of them right now.
Horford even in the post. I mean, Horford is a mess offensively right now.
Yeah, he's been incredible. So Jaylen Brown asked an interesting question. The reporter asked him, "How far behind are you from the Celtics? From the Nets, excuse me. Jalen asked to repeat the question. The guy pointed at the scoreboard, pointed at last season, and says, "At this point, do you feel like you're very far behind, from the Nets?" And Jalen responds, "What do you mean by that?" And the guy says, "Are the Nets better than the Celtics?" Pretty much just say, "Do you think that?" He's like, "Well, look, we had a bad game tonight, but I don't think there's anyone in the NBA that's, I wouldn't say that about anyone in the NBA." In other words, saying we could be anybody, and he's saying that he doesn't think that any team out there is better than the Celtics, and that for this night they were better. They were the better team, but that doesn't necessarily mean he paused and he goes, I'm not quite sure I know how to answer that question. I don't, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird question. I can't really expect any NBA player to
Unless
say
you're
another
Em-
team's better than us.
unless you're Embiid.
Yeah, right. I
It's
mean,
not a
at the end
rivalry.
of the
They
season, you can
always
make
kick
that.
They
our
always
At
beat
ass.
us.
I
They're
love
better.
that.
the end of the season, you can make that determination. But yeah, I mean, tonight the Nets were clearly the better team. If that's that's an obvious one. I don't expect anyone on the Celtics to lay down.
I mean,
Crown,
throw Kyrie
crown the
into this
Nets.
mix. They're looking scary again. They're better than last year. Defensively, there's a little bit of an identity forming there. You saw it tonight. They made it tough on Boston for stretches. Their role players are better. I mean, Patty Mills. It felt like the Celtics had him for a minute just because of the Ime connection. Then he goes to the Nets, and you're like, oh no, the rich got richer.
Yeah,
And
everyone
man, did
just
they get
speculated
richer.
it.
He hits every single three he takes for this team. It's unreal. And that could have really helped the Celtics.
He would have
back
been
on it.
perfect on the Celtics. That was one of the reasons why a lot of people thought it would be a match made in heaven. Oh, you got Ime, they have a role for this guy. And yeah, you're right. All of a sudden, he just goes to the Nets and just oof, that one hurt. And
A
tonight,
reporter
think about how
brought
huge
up,
that signing ended up being because they were expecting Kyrie to play still at that point. It wasn't like they thought they weren't going to have Kyrie. But imagine if they didn't have Mills. I mean, that'd be a huge, huge void at that position for them.
Denver's been good. Harris has been great shooting. Aldridge, man. Looks like Aldridge never left, huh? Like the turnarounds.
Yeah, I can't figure that out.
Finishing.
He needs to be
everything.
tested for steroids.
Yeah, he's been awesome. So, I mean, that's an implication at the top of the East. And that's, to answer the question for Brown, this team's miles behind that. It's Chicago, it's Brooklyn, it's Milwaukee, and then it's everybody else, I'd say.
Wait, what do you think it is?
Chicago's in that group, Brooklyn and Milwaukee.
Not Philly?
Oh, you hate Philly, Bobby. He hated Philly last year, too. Philly's
They're
playing
close.
well, though.
I'd say they're between the top and the rest
They're
of the
beating
team.
up on the Warriors right now.
If they don't replace Simmons' slot,
Really?
they're not in that upper echelon.
16. Yeah. They're up 16. Yeah, I mean, the Sixers have an interesting situation in their own right, so who knows how that's going to shape up.
I don't know. I don't think they're missing a beat. What they're getting out of Maxey and Curry right now is better than the combined effort of what they were getting out of Simmons. I don't think they're that far behind when they're fully loaded. Obviously Embiid missed a bunch of games, and that's not great. But I think that team enters that upper echelon conversation.
Hornets.
I think you're looking at Brooklyn, Miami, and Milwaukee as the clear top three. I think you're looking at a middle class of Chicago, Washington, Charlotte, and Philly and Atlanta that are all ahead of you. Again,
yeah, Atlanta too.
I mean, you are really, really, really. It's hard to
That's
put
what
the
I was
Celtics.
saying. Like,
Don't sleep on
the
Indy.
Celtics ahead of
Don't sleep
any
on my
of those
Pacers.
teams.
I'm sleeping on the Pacers, but Washington, I believe in. Like, we're 20 games in now. That's when you start to kind of know where.
I do not believe in Washington. I think the Celtics
don't
will
either.
overtake them.
They have the LA Lakers championship supporting cast, and they've added Dinwiddie. Beal will be Beal again at some point. They have good interior.
I'm not
play.
buying.
They're better than the Celtics.
I buy Chicago fully. I think clear cut Brooklyn, Miami, Chicago, Milwaukee, Philly, Atlanta, 6.
That's
clearly,
6 right there, yeah.
Six
So the
clearly
Celtics are
ahead.
playing.
The Knicks are right there.
6 clearly ahead of you. The Knicks are a bit of a mess right now, but again, so are the Celtics.
I think the Celtics are better than the Knicks.
But the Celtics are in a mix, I think, with, and I didn't even mention Washington, Bobby, among that 6. I think the Celtics are
That's
more
what I
in
was
a
saying
mix
this morning. Like, it's
with
hard.
Washington,
to put them in the
New York, Cleveland, and Celtics. I think are in the mix for that 7 through 10 situation.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's what I said to start the season. I think
I
one
agree.
of my bold
that's kinda where
predictions
I
was
think,
there's 6 at best, I think I said.
Yeah, I think those 6 those 6 are solid ahead of them. Would it be stunning if they snuck into a 5 or no, not stunning. They absolutely can play
some
there.
breaks. I mean, the Cavs.
They can absolutely play there, but you're still talking about potential first round. I mean, you're playing a really good team in the first round. I mean, it's
no matter what.
It's a long road. It's a tough one. So who knows? But anyway,
but that's the discouraging thing is now you're not the better team in the first round, where you used to be.
I will say, if the Celtics maintain this defensive identity that they have built early on, they'll be tough for teams to see first round too.
Well, I think they'll.
I'm not treating them like this defensive juggernaut yet.
Yeah,
like
I think the defense. will allow them to win regular season games if they keep up that intensity, because most teams aren't bringing that level of intensity to most regular season games. So that should allow them to stack up enough wins to get into the playoffs. In the playoffs, I don't think that amounts to shit. It's
shot making becomes important.
the shot making becomes the thing, and that's where they'll be exposed. So yes, I actually do think they can stay competitive and play with that defense, but in the playoffs would be hard. It's hard, So I don't know. It's where we are. And
I feel like that's the margin of effort. Like that little extra oomph is what they lacked tonight, right? And in a best of 7 series, it's like the worst type of like matchup you could have, especially if this team gets momentum going into the playoffs. But obviously, that's way down the road. Overall, I still like this homestand for the Celtics. I still think they're trending in the right direction. Sure, they're reminded that they're not quite on that top of the Eastern Conference level yet, that's could be what they're striving for.
I don't think the word yet belongs in that
right now, John.
Yeah.
Ime said it was a good homestand. It could have been a great one.
It could have been a great one. That's a perfect way to put it. Like, again, it shows you where you stand, so to speak.
I mean, okay.
They won 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4.
You blew out the Rockets, the worst team. You blew out. You did a really impressive win against the Lakers. You pulled together on that one, so it's a good homestand.
They've redded the ship. 8-4 over the last 12. Their numbers stack up in the league
The
hierarchy.
stuffing is really good, according to my wife.
Okay.
So that's another win. Yes. This one was robo stuffing, by the way. I didn't follow a recipe. I just read 3 or 4 recipes and I just winged it.
Heat up tomorrow,
dab of this, touch
but it's
of that.
stuffing, right? I mean, you can't. How bad can you mess it up?
It's just all getting globbed together on the plate.
It's all mashed together, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's mayhem. Thanksgiving. Everyone's just throwing stuff in the plate. Nobody remembers what's what.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the schedule, just in terms of how it got weak, how it ramped up again tonight, and it was an actual test that they fell short on. I think you're looking at a month ahead here that's going to write the story on this team. When you think of Philadelphia coming up next week, this weekend, I think a few tough games. The Spurs aren't, Toronto's not. But once you get to that Philadelphia game, and then a West Coast trip that follows, Utah, Portland, Lakers, Clippers, Suns, then right into the Bucks, Warriors, Knicks, Philly. I'd say between now and, right around Christmas time, you'll really have a feel on what this team is.
Yeah. I think we know.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is like, it's not negative. I'm really not trying to be. I just think we know what they are, and it's a bummer.
Wow, you're right. You're right, Bobby. You just named this. Did you just list off the schedule?
Oh, I looked at the phone. Yeah.
No, I just did too. It's difficult.
Yeah. I just don't think we'll be surprised by anything that the team does, and that's in either direction. I don't think we'll be surprised if they put together a really good string and they're competitive and their defense plays well and they're getting, solid performances nightly out of Tatum and Brown and stringing together some wins and playing competitively against some of the better teams in the East. That wouldn't be surprising. But I also just think, that their ceiling is kind of capped, and it is what it is, and they're very far off. And I don't know, as I said, as a Celtics fan, is very used to kind of quick fix solutions, and I just don't see one here. So
Right.
you have to do something drastic, or you just accept kind of being stuck in the middle for a little bit. And again, back to the stuck in neutral. That's just kind of where they are.
I'm mildly concerned about Jalen, as you pointed out during the game, John. He didn't look right to me in warmups. He didn't look right to me during the game. Ime said he had the burst. I didn't really see it. It looked like it was kind of a borderline thing that he would play, and they even said he'll be day-to-day for the next week here. So I don't know why he played. It didn't help them a ton.
He said after
I don't get it at all.
After the game, he said he felt better tonight. I just looked at a tweet. I don't know.
I don't get it at all. To me, it's like, soft tissue injuries, you wait until it's 1,000%. You gain nothing.
What's he gonna miss the next game? And it's like,
that's not how these things go. You don't mess with hamstrings like this. You don't rush it and then play it game by game. You just wait. And
what's the point?
I don't get it.
Pushing him into this when he didn't help you a ton. You lost big anyway.
0 for 8. Damn.
Yeah.
I was kind of
So him and
perplexed
Brown
by
were 1 for 17 from 3.
Tatum
That's
and
the
Brown,
story.
yeah.
That's really the story at the end of it.
Those are bad. Bad.
Typically not the numbers you
But
want to
that's
see.
the stuff to it again, right? It's it's just bad.
It's a simple game.
Just
It's a simple game. It's a make-miss league, boys.
as
I'm
they
more-
like to say.
A lot of
I'm a little
potential
worried
points
about
tonight.
Brown's health.
I've heard that before. Make mislead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what were
it
the
is.
what were the I didn't look finally, but like
Jesus.
I wanted to see points in the paint.
They didn't get inside
Huh?
at all, really. They didn't get inside at all, really.
I didn't
I got you
I
points
didn't
in the
think they
paint.
did.
I mean, Horford. Here's the tricky thing about Rob being down is Horford is not.
38
Yeah,
to 40.
40 to 38 Boston.
Celtics won.
Celtics won that.
40 to 38.
They won second chance points.
Second half.
They
the
won
second
fast
half
break
helped
points,
that.
but I'm guessing a lot of it was the empty calories in that late run.
Here's the thing about Rob's injury or sickness, whatever's going on now.
48
Horford-
three-point attempts.
Horford's not showing to be a backup per se of like what Rob brings him on offense because he's not hitting the threes. His touch around the rim's really off, so he's not a pick and roll threat right now for the most part. So, I mean, that's probably why you saw a little bit of Cantor in this one for the offensive help there, and
Jabari.
Jabari helped immensely in the second half with his rim pressure there. It's a bummer. I mean, that's not what you were expecting from Horford. Like this elite all defense run he's on, and then just really looking lost offensively because it was the other way around last time he was here. I know he's
Marcus
still a
throws
good
him some
defender, but-
lobs,
I know, but the touch and then the 3-point shot. I mean, he was shooting 37% for 5 years. Now he's like really.
Well, he had that one
Taking
year
a
here where he
28%
shot
run.
44% for the year, which was insane. And realistically, he's mid to high.
But he's not a
30s.
28% guy like he is right now.
No, it's been bad.
Yeah.
It's been bad now. All right. Well, I guess that's it. That's the best we're gonna do tonight.
Let's just forget
That's
about
the best
this
we're gonna
game.
do.
What do you say?
Forget about it.
We're
Spurs and
gonna
Raptors.
just fire up the
Good chance
Com
to
app
bounce
and just
back.
forget about the game. Focus on something different. Focus
Com.com/garden, 40% off. Go get some.
Yep. For the premium subscription.
I will say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We are immensely thankful for all of you hanging out here and listening
Yes.
to us gripe.
Thank you.
And me just be a bitter, angry man. About
you need to have a cooking podcast, I think, John. By the sound of it,
about
Jimmy
our
John.
the Jimmy
like
John
to cook.
podcast featuring John's stuffing
John
and
can
pies.
school Jimmy. He can put him. It'll
right.
be like Gordon Ramsay.
You probably would. What are we working with pies over there tomorrow? Since you got 3 different stuffings, is there
The
a go-to
pies?
pie for you guys?
So
Yeah.
I made what my daughter wanted. She wanted an apple and she wanted a pumpkin pie. I'm a cherry pie guy. We ended up not
Cherry
going that
pie.
route, but that's just me.
Naturally, you're not. You
Um,
don't sound upset about that.
That's all
Cherry
right.
pie.
Well, I love
Cherry
it.
pie.
I love that.
She's my cherry pie.
She's my cherry pie. So yeah, what you guys got a final thought before we wrap it?
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. It's always fun. These games aren't always fun, but I always look forward to chatting with you guys and everyone who watches along in the comments. So that would be my final thought. Hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving with your friends, your family, or whoever. That's pretty much it. Enjoy some food and whatever football games are on tomorrow. Not great one in the day. I know that.
Yeah,
but-
too bad no NBA. I mean, the NBA's been awesome this year so far. The fouling, I'm thankful for just the competition level around the league right now. It's been awesome games left and right. A few really good Celtics ones so far to start this year. And, this isn't like I don't have like the dreary, like awful feeling around this team so far, covering them and just talking about them every night that I did last year. I think this year,
It's not. It's much better.
It's going to be tumultuous. There's going to be a lot of up and downs. I still think there'll be like that 500-ish feel that we talk about, all the experiences that we go through with many of these players. But I think the effort, the intensity, the buy-in to the coach, and the defense is there. So we're going to have a team to talk about all year, for better or worse.
All right, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. What's everyone's favorite side dish? Did we do that, by the way? Did we do that last year?
I hate
Last
arguing
year,
this.
I wouldn't know. I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to
What was the
argue it.
Patriots
Everyone
thing,
can
John?
have
Like,
their
that was the
favorite.
I
whole.
think John's is obvious stuffing, right?
Judon hates mac and cheese, which is what to me that
By
was
the
kind of
way,
a wild move.
Well, here's the problem.
Judon
If,
got
if,
the Durant jersey tonight.
if you're eating like, it depends what kind of mac and cheese. Like if you're eating like, you're talking about putting like Velveeta shells on the table, like, yeah, gross. No, thank you. But if you're having like
I wouldn't say those are gross, but it's not really a Thanksgiving.
but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
yeah.
appropriate
like
for Thanksgiving.
It's
right?
got to be. You got to do a little more work than that.
If you get to work and really do something special, then yes, absolutely.
powdered potatoes.
It's not right. It's not just mac.
My
and,
issue
like,
with mac and
yeah.
cheese is that I would probably just eat too much mac and cheese. It's just one of
La-
those things where I just keep going
heavy.
back for.
Well,
It
last
kinda,
year,
like,
last
takes
year I
over
made
all
a,
the sides.
I made a lobster mac and cheese last year, and it freaking dominated the table, and
Oh
people
yeah,
didn't
that's
eat anything.
that's
people
extra,
Oh,
didn't
that's
eat
dude.
unfair. I mean,
It
That's
was.
extra, man. Yeah,
Like,
that's not really a Thanksgiving.
cheating.
Traditional. Yeah, totally.
It was cheating.
Totally.
It's like Secret Santa. Instead of spending $5, you spend like $100, and you're like,
like, oh, who made the lobster mac
Whoa,
and cheese?
wow, who
It's
got
so
this?
good.
that's like
who got
putting,
the
like,
iPad?
That's
yeah,
like putting
yeah.
a rack. That's like putting a rack of crab legs next to your burger. People
Somebody
know.
brings like
the
canned
burger.
cranberry sauce. That's like the crappy gift. But listen, canned cranberry sauce
the lime?
slaps. I'll do the can
Yes,
over the
thank
regular
you.
stuff.
Yes, me too.
Yeah,
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
Don't give me don't waste your time making like homemade cranberry sauce. I don't want it. Just open up the can, plop that jelly out, and just
Listen,
I'll go off. I'll be fine.
we're gonna post some pictures of our food. We're gonna retweet it at Celtics CLNS. We'll see what everybody's got going on.
Mac and cheese.
Do
I
it.
think it's a side dish in parts of the country. It's not as much in the Northeast. I don't think, unless I just made that up. I don't think it's a common side dish for Thanksgiving, at least around
No,
here.
but it's creeping over the last couple years. It's rising fast.
It's
Yeah, it's
creeping
been
because
rising.
people
That's
are
true.
like, what have we been waiting for?
Well,
like,
because
there's no-
people like
there's no-
mac and cheese. You can eat that anytime. You can't really just go around eating stuffing
Well,
on
that's
like
the
a
thing.
casual Wednesday afternoon. Like it's a weird look.
No, but
Why
the
not
point
have
is
it
like,
there?
there's no rules.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's no rules. I mean, you can go buy a cake and have cake whenever you want. There's no rules against it, but it's just kind of strange to do it. Like you can go to the
Yeah.
supermarket and buy a cake right now.
You
There's
just whip
no
up
rules. It doesn't
have to
something
be your
on a regular
birthday.
day, like,
I think you're just worried about mac and cheese stealing from your other experiences. Just
Yeah.
put the portions
Agreed completely.
appropriately. I mean, this is the key to Thanksgiving. You can't sprint in. Well, you're probably gonna, but you gotta be able to last. through all
Next
these
year, I'm just
different
gonna make like
selections.
a rack of ribs and bring it there.
Right, right. Well, that's like, there's no rules apparently. You can just
No
make
rules.
whatever you want. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even like
Isn't that-
turkey. You
Isn't
just
that what
do a
happens at
chicken.
Friendsgiving? Isn't that what like?
That's what happens in
sophomore year,
Friendsgiving. Yeah.
Someone brought
Everyone
spaghetti
just
and
brings,
meatballs.
like,
It was like,
all kinds of
whoa.
Bring whatever you want.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like that stuff. Like,
It's like literally every
you know,
entree you can think of. People are bringing that.
especially if you throw like ethnic stuff into the mix. Like I used to
Yeah.
get like some Greek stuff in there too, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. I like that.
Jimmy has a
Instead-
strict rule.
Yeah.
instead-
We got a
instead
side
of-
of rice on my plate.
Traditional Thanksgiving
Good.
food. Mashed potatoes only as a side. No, but think of it. I mean, you can.
No, I
you
do
can
rice,
like,
I
you
do
don't
rice,
want
so,
too many
yeah.
cheesy sides. Like if you're doing like a casserole or like a potato au gratin or whatever, like you got to be careful. You don't want too much.
Jimmy refers to what the.
But here's the
Pilgrims
thing.
Right, thank you.
You could easily do turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, cranberry as the big five. Call
Gravy's
it a day,
important.
And that's it.
Gravy's not as
However,
important.
if you're gonna start to put other dumb stuff in there, I'm gonna knock it right out and go to mac and cheese,
Right.
and something
Right.
else. So like, if
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like
yeah.
putting steeped
John's
carrots,
like, get that
no,
green bean casserole the
Get
hell
your
off my table.
friggin' green bean casserole and your
No, that's
friggin' carrots
normal.
out.
That's
So that's fine.
fairly
You
John is trying to-
traditional.
he just wants to
side,
upgrade.
though.
You want to go
Oh, mac and
minimalist,
cheese will
that's
murder
fine.
carrot casserole. Obviously,
But-
there's no comparison.
But people still do dumb stuff like that.
Oh, I know. People just don't read the room. Just read the room. You're going. Nobody's dying for your green bean casserole. I mean, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but personally, I'm not a big green
I
bean
never
guy.
even heard of that before.
That
I
might
saw it on
shock
Twitter
you.
today.
If I send you a picture, Bob, you know what it is. You've seen it before for sure. But anyways, back to the Celtics. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. For the C's, going up against the San Antonio Spurs, look, just stick with the program. I know we've been saying this the last couple of nights, but I want to see how you can respond to
Or
a loss
don't.
like this. Like, let's see that heart and let's see that effort and that play for pride that we saw throughout this homestand up until tonight. So I think there's a good chance we'll see
could be
that.
tricky.
But my only fear is if someone like Jalen's not playing, and guys are out of the mix. Tatum's gonna have to step up in a big way here. So let's see how Tatum responds. I'm not saying he's not up for the task, but it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be an easy game for the Celtics, but we'll see where they stand on the effort meter.
Yeah, it's a
I
tough
think.
road.
Listen, I'm not stuffing shaming. I love stuffing. It's just very unpredictable. You don't want it to be too dry. If it's too dry, you need to douse it with gravy. And you don't even.
I just can't wait for this show to end because apparently I hit it out of the park with this robo stuffing,
gravy.
and I'm.
Oh,
and I
you
gotta
haven't
go-
even
I
tried
gotta
it
go-
yet.
I gotta go try it. Yeah.
Yeah,
We underrated gravy. We didn't even talk about it. It's a
Gravy's
key.
important.
Gravy is a necessity, especially if you're turkey. If you're getting the white meat part of the turkey,
Everything
that
gets
can be a
gravy.
little dry.
But that's
You
your
have to
mistake. You
have
don't
gravy.
eat.
The
You don't
whole
eat white
plate.
meat.
You smother the whole plate in gravy.
But you can't. Not everyone can have the dark meat. There's only what do you got? The legs? Yeah, like that's it. Like
The thigh.
Wait, you
The
just gonna
thigh.
throw out the
Thigh,
white
the
meat?
thigh and the drumsticks, and that's what I get. Yes.
Yes.
I get
Yeah,
it.
well, you're the
John-
dad gets the dark meat situation.
Thigh is the
But
best
like
piece there is at all.
the kids
John
are stuck with
Spencer,
the
end of the line.
yeah, and a big glass of milk.
Dad
for
gets
me.
Dad gets the dark.
Bobby, was that you the
And-
other night? Or
I'll
like
do
a
milk.
week ago?
A lot of people
You-
think
you were
that's
cooking-
weird. I'll do milk.
Bobby was cooking. What was it? Boneless chicken thighs. There's nothing better than that. I love it.
That's great.
Oh,
It's one of my go-tos.
nothing wrong with that.
With the bone and the skin is also good. And
Oh,
then
yeah,
you gotta get good cocktails going too. So I get some nice
You
Bloody
gotta get some
Mary
cocktails going.
going
Listen,
tomorrow.
John, we're at the
Cocktails,
garden. We gotta get home.
Sounds
we
like you got to
cook.
drink breakfast.
You
lunch,
guys
man.
gotta go. You guys gotta
I'm
go.
a
Happy
pumpkin bread guy. I'm a big
Oh,
pumpkin
shit.
bread guy.
Oh,
I'll
Bobby,
make
half the court
pumpkin
is
bread
gone.
actually. So I'm more of a
Yeah,
pumpkin
we
bread
got-
than pie. The pie's a little
we
too
got-
sweet.
Listen,
Toss a little
Jimmy,
cream
we
cheese
got
on it.
empty stomachs here. We got work to do.
Go.
trying to
Josue
halt
and Bobby got stuff to do.
Thanksgiving.
We
All
were
right,
gonna wrap
guys.
it up.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys. Happy Thanksgiving, all.
Be safe
Happy
tonight.
Thanksgiving.